Good evening and welcome to Legacy After the Locker Room. I'm your host, Kayla Bradham, here tonight with Super Bowl champion Walter Thurmond III. Walter, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, I was blessed to be able to do some work with you this past summer with Sports Philanthropy World. So, right off the bat, I want to say thank you for your heart, for charity, for giving back to the community, and for creating hope and possibility through sports.
Thank you. I really
You're so
appreciate you having me
welcome.
on. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about sports as a little boy. How did you find your way into football?
It was a long road. I grew up playing baseball, my brother and I, and we were avid baseball players. Played a little bit of soccer here and there, some basketball. It wasn't until my eighth grade year, that the summer of going into my eighth grade, that I got into football. Prior to that, my brother and I always wanted to play flag, but my mom was always afraid that we would get hurt growing up. And for me, I was a skinny, scrawny little kid, so it was like, oh, you're gonna go play football, you're for sure gonna get hurt. And so it was one of those things that kind of got pushed off, and eventually we were able to go play football my right before high school, and just continued on from there.
So that's crazy to me because, a lot of these kids are starting with Pop Warner when they're 6 and playing 25 years of football. Obviously, you were really good in high school.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I couldn't imagine playing at that age, especially with full pads and the contact, and I guess being removed from football and just the residual effects and the long wear and tear of playing for so long. I can only imagine how the body may feel, the mind and the body may feel after playing for so long.
wow, I agree. So, good enough to go to Oregon.
Yep.
What did that college selection look like? Which were some of the schools that you had considered?
It was an interesting aspect. Had the opportunity to be able to go play football and then have my school play for college, and that was a big thing to me. And I also wanted to continue running track. I ran track in high school, and it was a 110 hurler and a high jumper. Gone to state several times, and I wanted to continue to see how far I could progress my track abilities, and that was a big influence on my decision. Had a couple of Pac-10 schools as well as some of the Mountain West schools, and actually I probably would have went to San Diego State, being so close proximity to where I grew up in. But they didn't have a track program; they just had club track, and I didn't want to run on a club team, and I wanted to be a part of a organization there. And Oregon came about, and they allowed me to continue to run track and play football, and it was a perfect fit.
That's fantastic because I don't see that with every school. A lot of schools will give you your football scholarship, but you're not
Yeah.
getting a full ride to run track.
And
Um,
it was an interesting situation. I mean, I could have possibly gotten just a track scholarship as well, just from the events that I posted and some of the numbers that I had. And so it was a great opportunity, being a part of Oregon, one of the best track programs out in the country too. So it was a win-win for me.
I think that's so great. So you make it, through college again, playing very, very well. Get picked up by the Seahawks in the fourth round, right?
Yep.
What was that night like for you?
It was interesting. I decided to stay going to my senior year. I was having a great year, and then the fourth game of my season, I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL on a kick return. And so, having high hopes and aspirations, and kind of with the trajectory where I was possibly looking to be drafted in, uh, you know, first, second, third round prior to the fourth round, and being fortunate to still be able to get drafted going into that fourth round, put a lot of things in perspective for me. It allowed me to see that college football wasn't going to last forever, and you start looking to some of the statistics of only the average career is only 3 years, and things of that nature. And so I wanted to set myself up and prepare myself for life after football. And so that Saturday morning when I got the call, Pete Carroll was the head coach. It was his first year. I'd known him from USC. We had epic battles through the course of my time playing at Oregon against SC, and we had this interesting rivalry and understanding, being a hometown kid and wanting to go to SC originally, just being too small and didn't fit for the program. And the first thing he says when he calls me. He's like, "This is Pete Carroll with the Seattle Seahawks," and I just want to say, there's no more Ducks and there's no more Trojans. It's just Seahawks. And so from there, it was kind of groundbreaker, and we were able to go on, and it was a great opportunity. I got drafted with a bunch of great guys. That was a part of that draft class, and guys in the organization and women in the organization, and it was a great fit coming out of college.
Very, very cool. I got to ask about that Super Bowl. Favorite moment of that game?
Um, the favorite moment in the game was, I guess, when the confetti was coming down. But I think even it was probably the week before. Honestly, the couple days before, I think we were just so prepared and ready for that game, going into it, and that we just had a surreal confidence and understanding of what the offense was going to do. And we're hearing all week that this is a historic offense. They just broke all the records for on offense pretty much, and we were just kind of just overlooked. And so we kind of had a chip on our shoulders going into that game, and everyone was very cerebral on that team, and we just came out and played from start to finish, and the results were the results.
So you've said, the word preparation a couple of times, being prepared for that game, being prepared in college, knowing that football wasn't going to last forever. Average length is 3 years. Speak to our listeners just a little bit, if you don't mind, because it's all about creating hope and possibility. Preparation got you a long way in life, correct?
Oh,
Um,
most definitely. There's a couple sayings. Success is opportunity meeting preparation. So I mean, everyone's waiting for it to be successful in some capacity. Some people have more opportunity than others, but that doesn't mean someone is prepared for those opportunities either. And so I think if you have lack of opportunity, the better you're preparing yourself for when the opportunity arises, you will succeed. And there was a quote that I grew up on through high school and constantly through college and professional even today is we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. So the more that you're able to do it in practice and train something, the more second nature it becomes. And so I think that's also kind of the mentality that we had, to where we were very prepared. We did the things that we didn't want to do, and when someone made a play to the outside world, it looked like it was a great, magnificent play, but there was something that we've done so many times to where we were expecting to make those plays. And I think that's a very unique uh, attribute to be able to have as an individual, because I think if everyone is living within that kind of aspect, I think we have yet to see that potential from human society.
I love it. I think that's great advice. And I want to just take a quick moment, remind our listeners that you're listening or watching Legacy After the Locker Room. We're powered by the Sports Philanthropy Network. Blessed to be here tonight with Walter Thurmond III, former Seahawk, founder of United Champions for Change, and really doing so much more than that. So thank you for joining us, to everyone in the Legacy After the Locker Room community. Walter, you played football for nearly 6 years, and you moved into that sort of IT space, besides giving back in a whole lot of areas. How did you choose IT? Like, there's this misconception, I think, that you have the dumb athlete. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody can question the intelligence it takes to work on IT. How did you choose that path?
It was something that I grew up on through high school. A friend of mine at church, we kind of built we had our own little R&D facility, and we would break down computers and build computers. And that was kind of my first introduction into the technology space. And from there, I was kind of always hovering, even from playing from college going into professionally, I was dabbling into entertainment as well. And so it was actually after the Super Bowl, I had this idea for some technology, and a few months later, I was able to get it patented and been granted some hardware and some software patents. And so once I got into the space, my going after my 6 year playing with the Philadelphia Eagles, uh, I've I've been on injured reserve 3 times through the course of my career, so I've had a significant amount of injuries through the course of my career. But I've also dabbled. Um, had one foot in the door, one foot out the door, I guess you can say. And so for me, it was wanting to pursue some of these other interests and passions in entertainment and technology. And I decided to preserve the rest of my body that I had, and venture out into these different spaces, and knowing that Football is always something that I've done, and it wasn't who I am. And so I wanted to be able to dive more into that aspect within entertainment and technology, and of course philanthropy. And for me, all these three things are very cohesive in how I'm doing some of my endeavors.
I love it. So, I kind of want to break those down a little bit. Let's start with the filmmaking.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that experience and what it is that you were doing.
Yeah, it was a very unique experience, and it came about from when I tore my knee in college, and that was the direction that I wanted to go post playing career. And I was fortunate enough to work on a documentary that I executive produced called Word Warriors 3, and that was my second year in the NFL right after I broke my leg coincidentally. And so from that moment, I was able to executive produce a couple other feature films and documentaries as well through the course of my playing career. And part of the reason of retiring as well as wanting to be more hands-on from a production standpoint and directing, and went out and worked on a couple of projects in the course of that year, and then got into the technology space again, hands-on as opposed to being in a passive capacity.
So, let's talk then a little bit as we're transitioning into that technology space. What are some of the things that you're working on or that you did work on with technology?
Yeah, some of the technology was in the music streaming and sharing space. Uh, it was a interesting journey from there. Technology is it's interesting business. Everyone's looking for the next best thing. Everyone's looking to get ahead of their competitors, and it's always kind of not being too far ahead of the curve because you're also looking from a consumer aspect. I think technology constantly moves very fast as it does, and so it's really trying to being able to bridge that gap between the innovation as well as the consumerism of technology. And as it pertains to now, I find myself in more of like an IT brokerage type of space, as I'm still kind of working in the background of developing some other technologies.
Oh my gosh. So, I taught high school for a couple of years during COVID. I had a student who was great. He would just, for his demonstration speech, he took apart a computer and rebuilt it. What is your advice to high school kids who really do enjoy IT and, breaking into that space? It's obviously very competitive. What would you say to kids who want to get into the IT space? What would be beneficial to them?
I think just in general, everyone is good and everyone's great at something, and it's just a matter of finding out what that it is. And so I think for a young individual that's looking to get into the IT space, it's just uh, thinking outside the box. And I think that's what we're lacking for in a lot of aspects because we've done things such a lot of traditional things in a lot of different ways, and we're constantly evolving as human beings. And so new innovations are always going to be needed, and it's a lot about servicing humanity, servicing the people. And so I think being able to find things in those aspects, and ultimately doing things that you're passionate about, things that you care about, and finding ways to be able to make a living out of that. And I think young individuals that are in high school trying to figure out what they're going to do and what they're going to be, I think we've also been ingrained of, we have a set certain amount of things that we can be, the lawyer, the doctor, this and that, and those things are serve their purpose in society, but there's so much more as we're in a very interesting aspect in our culture and economy as work is changing through COVID, that we're starting to see that we're heading into a new direction from the traditional aspect of work is being changed. And so I think that's where the thoughts of the young minds come into play of being able to create our future.
I couldn't agree with you more. And it's so neat. It's so neat to see, how much can be done virtually. And I look at these kids and I'll just tell you, I feel so blessed that I was able to be in the schools and see
Yep.
the imagination and the determination of these young people. I have so much hope for the next 15, 20 years of commerce. So, speaking of hope, one of the things, and you say you've merged this all so well, the entertainment space, the documentaries, the IT, that third component, Walter, giving back through philanthropy. When you look at your LinkedIn profile, there's a whole bunch of giving back listed. And I know you're so humble. People would have 4 paragraphs about the work you're doing, and you have simply a word or a phrase. Do you mind just, I hate to ask you to brag yourself up, but take us through your philanthropic endeavors if you don't mind.
Yeah, I've just had great role models growing up in the household, as well as different teachers and coaches that I grew up in very respected, and just seeing the things that they've been able to do, spending their time and giving back and helping to mature young individuals. And my grandmother come from a family of educators. My grandmother, my mom's side, my dad's father and mother as well have been educators, and so that's always kind of stuck with me there, and seeing different things that they've been able to accomplish in that aspect, and taking a step and looking at the bigger picture. We all need help in some kind of capacity, and it's not of a charity aspect. It's more of kind of a situation of empowerment. And my grandmother was a recording artist for Motown back in the 60s and 70s, and so she has spent the majority or later part of her life in the continent of Africa and West Africa, working in orphanages, as well as developing a music and film school. And so one of the boards I sit on is Light of Love Foundation, which uh, oversees the fundraising endeavors of the Mark Bolan School of Music and Film. And it's a free weekend segment of courses teaching the young individuals music composition, film production, screenwriting, editing in both capacities. And it's again an aspect of being able to create hope. And it's people don't know what they're good at until they're dabbling and messing around with some things. And when you believe in yourself is the best identifier of being able to chase your passions. And I think people need to do more believing in themselves, and not looking for outside validation, which a lot of the social media has kind of convoluted in a lot of aspects. It's kind of that false belief in oneself in some cases. And so it's getting back to the root of who we are as individuals, and understanding that we're all great and we're all gifted, and it's just a matter of finding out what we're gifted at and being able to apply ourselves.
Yes. Oh man, I feel like I'm going to church. That's so true though, and you're just saying all of the right things, because I live in Milwaukee. Not every student in Milwaukee has an opportunity to dabble. I grew up in poverty. I didn't have the opportunity to try different sports. I couldn't play an instrument and play sports. I had to choose one or the other. I chose softball. So I always thought I could have been the best alto saxophonist if I only had a
If
saxophone.
you only that saxophone, yeah.
So that just resonates with me, Walter. And I think it's my dream that, for example, yesterday I was speaking to a gentleman from Cameroon. Cameroon doesn't have a baseball stadium.
Mm.
The kids don't have a baseball field. They don't have that diamond.
Yeah.
How do you know if you're not, you could be destined to be a great Major League Baseball player if
And
you
not have
only
the
had a
not have
diamond?
opportunity exposure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that just speaks to me. Tell us about some of your other philanthropic endeavors.
Yeah, the United Champions for Change, that was kind of started out of COVID. I was head coach at the varsity head coach at my former high school, teaching golf, and it was a great experience. And as we're getting the season going, and halfway through the season, in Los Angeles County, everything just got shut down. And so for me, being immersed in the education space and seeing the effects of COVID, and everything, people scrambling around, everything getting transitioned to online learning, got to pierce the veil of some of the discrepancies in the education systems and the lack of resources that some of these youth have. Going back to, we're a product of our environments, and some environments don't have a lot of resources at their disposal. And so it was from that moment, started coming up with this idea for the United Champions for Change, and being able to bring awareness and being able to help raise funds and work with other organizations that are working in the education and sports space, to be able to provide some of these resources that will, in turn, being able to help and empower the youth, and not as kind of a quick hand-me-down type of situation, but more of a aspect that they have that confidence, they have that belief in themselves, and they have an understanding of resources from other individuals who are looking to provide their time and expertise in various fields to be able to help educate and empower these youth. It's the old saying of, you teach some, you had somebody a fish for a day, they eat for a day, but if you teach them how to fish, they can eat for a lifetime. And it's kind of that same type of aspect of being able to give them the tangible resources that will better themselves, their family, and their communities.
Yeah, and I'm going to back up what you're saying with this thought. It's all of us as a community understanding these issues, understanding these problems. I live in Milwaukee. When I was teaching in the schools during COVID, Milwaukee is one of the most racially segregated cities in the United States.
Mm.
I could tell where my students lived based on how often their internet broke out.
Yep.
So if we want to, talk this talk, there is a digital divide.
Yep.
There is atrocious
Mm.
problems that need to be solved by all of us coming together as a community to really work and number one, expose the issues,
Yep.
and then number two, to provide solutions. So, let
You're
alone
absolutely right. Yeah.
access to technology, just having internet service
Yeah,
is a
it's not.
problem.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not good enough. There has to be much more, and the infrastructure in our country needs an upgrade, and we need to be able to have these various resources to be accessible. And it's again, it's for the overall good of for the country, the overall good for the economy, and everything that everyone talks about. You have people that are experiencing and being able to educate themselves, crime will go down, and people won't become desperate and having to, live a life in that criminal aspect because of, again, being a product of their environment and the lack of resources. And it's a one-two. They go hand in hand. And again, education is that big part of that. And it's maybe a different, a certain reform of education as well, of how things are being done, and being able to, really cater to the learning process that young individuals are evolving into.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's a lot of talk about I can't afford to go to college. Well, with the right access to technology and thanks to people like you in that IT space, we're almost in an age where you can Google anything and get your education. You want to start a business, you can Google how to start a business. You want to program something, you can watch a YouTube video and find out
Yeah.
how to program it. So I think it just goes, really to empowering people, to
Yeah.
allowing them to find their destiny.
And you're absolutely right. We are in the information age, and there's information right in our pockets. If you have access to a cell phone, or if you have access to internet in some capacity, you can find out about a lot of different things that are going on and really educate yourself. But it's the need of want to, and figuring out what that niche is that you have interest in, and something that you're naturally good at, and it's being able to hone those skills and develop into the best person that you can be.
That's right. So, speaking of developing into the best person that you can be, you founded United Champions for Change, and I'm just going to put that up here so everybody can go and Google it. During COVID, we're talking about living in an information age. And I talk to athletes all the time who say, like, no one really talked to me about having a foundation. I kind of felt like I was great for celebrity golf events or showing up for dinner auctions, but I really didn't, know how to do this. What is your advice, Walter, for other athletes who they want to give back, they just don't really know how? You've done it. What was your experience?
It's all about, everything's about having a team, right? And we athletes come from a team background, unless you're playing individual sports. So, but then you still have your immediate team of your coaches and different things in that capacity. And so it's just being able to get around like-minded individuals who have an interest and have a passion to be able to create change. And I think the biggest thing for athletes is to be able to figure out what space and sector that they want to be in to be able to help create that change. And I think it supersedes just the athlete aspect. I think everyone as individuals have the opportunity to be able to create foundations or being able to get involved and doing their part. I think the biggest thing is that, and it's not just leaving it to the athlete or an individual who has a bunch of money that just wants to see someone go out and make some change and do some things in that capacity. And so everyone has a part. It's about being accountable. And I think the first thing is, holding yourself accountable and understanding, the different things that uh, how you got to some place if you've been somebody that has been successful. You haven't got there by yourself. They always talk about self-made, people, but those people have gotten there in some capacity because someone believed in them, someone gave them an opportunity. And so it's kind of that same kind of mentality. And for me, it was always looking at older guys and older girls if it was from track, if it was from football or from baseball, of being able to give back and being able to help me and bring me along. I've experienced that through middle school, through high school, through college, even in the NFL. And you're talking about being able to compete against somebody, for your livelihood and for your position. And there's a few people that were, comfortable enough in what their purpose was in life to be able to help and mentor the younger guys in the space and help them out. And, always be forever grateful for those opportunities. And so for me, it's been being able to seeing those individuals has allowed me to be comfortable and being able to help and give back and really taking time to figure out, what my true purpose is in life. And it's not just from the business aspect or just sports. It actually is the philanthropic component. And so it's just being able to maximize that to the largest scale possible as if it was a business.
I think what you said is so important, and I want to give you a chance to sort of shout out some of those people. I know coaches always have a big part of it, but I know it's not always the coaches. Who are the people that influenced you the most when it comes to shaping your character and seeing this whole multifaceted approach to life?
I mean, I can be here all day naming some of the people. Because I mean, for me personally, it's I learn from everybody that I come in contact with. It doesn't matter how old they are, it doesn't matter how young they are, it doesn't matter their religious beliefs, their background. There's always something to be able to learn because it's an experience that I don't have. And for me to be able to be open to listen and take that information in, use the things that will help me and not use the things that won't help me in different aspects. And so that's kind of the approach that I've taken out of life. It's constantly learning from people. And so to answer that question, a lot of people have helped shape me to who I am, as well as my own personal beliefs and my own understandings and studies of life and spirituality and things of that nature to be able to get to this point and where I'm at.
I think it's great, and you're clearly at a pretty great place. 5-year plan. What's next for Walter Thurmond III?
I'll continue to develop and build out United Champions for Change. And right now, it's been tough just with COVID, just kind of having some of the fundraising different endeavors and being able to get awareness out. I think that's been the biggest thing we've been doing the past year and a half. Now it's just being able to continue on and start to implement some of the different programmings that we're looking to have set in place and really just maximize that aspect. There's a couple of endeavors in the entertainment space as well that has a huge social component to it as well. Being able to again provide resources and urban and economic development in a lot of respects, and really using the youth to facilitate this change, being able to create employment and some apprenticeship opportunities for young individuals coming out of college. And so that's the 5-year plan at the moment right now. And obviously technology is mixed in there as well, because I kind of see the entertainment technology kind of being that same type of sphere and space. But yeah, that's the 5-year plan for me.
I love it. I want to just take a second to let our listeners and viewers know that if you want to follow or connect with Walter, King Walt 6 on Instagram. That's King Walt 6 on Instagram. Walter Thurmond III if you want to talk business on LinkedIn. And if you want to follow his tweets at Walter Thurm, Thurm 3, Walter Thurm 3 on Twitter. Walter, we're just about out of time. I do ask every guest on Legacy After the Locker Room to partner with me for my charity of choice, Special Olympics. Can we count on you for a donation, an autograph donation?
Most definitely. Most
Thank you so
definitely.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll give you just a couple of seconds to thank anyone you want to thank and say hi to your family, but then we're going to go ahead and close this off.
Okay. Yeah. I just want to thank everyone who's near and dear to me. You guys know who you are. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate the support and care, and most importantly, just the dive into being able to create change in this coming future.
Thank you. Well, folks, that's it for tonight. My name is Kayla Bradham. I'm blessed to be here with Super Bowl champion Walter Thurmond III. We're here to remind you to live your legacy. Thank you, Walter.
Bye.